Yo, 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 yo. What's up, people? What's up? Wherever you're watching, YouTube, please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Follow. Make sure you got a timer on so when I go live, you can catch it. If you're on Twitter, what's up? We started streaming over there. I've been absent on Twitter world. I know y'all be like, where the hell is the mayor? I'm busy. I'm coming back. I'm trying to finish this book. But I miss y'all on Twitter, especially in Twitter Spaces. Some good people over there. Uh, I'm trying to be more consistent wherever I am. If you're on Facebook, you know I love you. I'm always talking to my people on Facebook. I'm on Facebook more than other places because my people get Facebook. Facebook is like the news for us country folk in North Carolina. So I'm on Facebook a lot. So there's that. Um, and LinkedIn, what's up? All of the places, all of the people. I'm glad y'all here. I also need y'all to know that I don't take y'all for granted. I know a lot of the times I'm up here just ranting with no pathway. I don't tell y'all where I'm going. I just talk, and y'all sit with me and ride with me. I appreciate that. Some of y'all have been riding with me since COVID when I was doing clickbaity political thirst trap. Some of y'all are even before then. Some of y'all came over with when I was at TYT, and I thank all of y'all for that. I also want people to know that I'm about to get very serious about uh, talking to y'all about what's going on politically because in this moment, uh, people just as the title suggests, the number we're dialing is disconnected, and that goes two ways. It goes one way in that the organizations and the entities that are supposed to represent us are calling and not calling on us. They're calling on other people to speak for us, but the message never reaches us. That's a disconnect. So it's a play on my words, or me playing on words to say that these people are not recognizing the disconnect. And in this episode, like so many, I'm specifically talking about the need for young black men to be front and center in certain issues, or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just time that black men, young black men specifically, start thinking about what it looks like for us to exist in an entity that becomes our political home. And I think so. All of that and everything that's going on right now is the reason uh, tonight I want to talk in what's going to sound probably more methodical than my normal just rants all over the place. But I need y'all to bear with me because I need to get through this, and so much so that I actually I did more than just thinking or talking about y'all. I literally wrote some stuff down tonight that I want to try to, like I said, get through because it's that important. Uh, uh, Again, the number you dial is disconnected, and I think that disconnect has become way too much to let slide or even ignore. Um, for if we sit silent in this moment, it's not just about the problems with the organizations that we're talking about that are disconnected. It's also a problem of our quietness. And you should think about your quietness. I'm talking about black people and people who care about black people, specifically in this moment, people who care about young black men and young black men. You should think about your quietness, your reason to not say anything. You should reflect on it, just like Dr. King spoke about the face of white supremacy, and that quietness hits different. It is actually also a form of white supremacy. So I think in this moment, we're not talking about white organizations, not at all. And that criticism of us being quiet is not about being quiet to what white organizations, what the political parties in this country are doing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about our organizations. I'm talking about our organizations and what it means in this moment for us to speak up on our behalf. We live in a time where there's more ways to say something that is impactful, truthful, and also grounded in community than any other time before. So we as young black men and black men in general, and people who care about black men, We should not be quiet about how our organizations are showing up, especially when it's harmful. And I think this is the moment that we are in, right? Especially with young black men. What I mean by that is right now, in this moment, guys, in this moment, we know there are two cases that should be all over everywhere, especially over black platforms. All black media, all black platforms should be talking about two cases. Two cases. They should be dominating, even if they're not making noise in mainstream media. And those two cases happen days apart. And even though they should be dominating black media, you look at the black organizations in this country, the black institutions, the NAACP, the National Urban League, and black churches, you would think these entities and institutions collectively were getting prepared for black HBCU homecomings. You would think these people were preparing for homecoming season. These wanna think about this. One of these cases saw a man who chased a young black boy more than 135 yards get found not guilty. And the other case saw a young brother who was defending himself get 35 years for said self-defense. So this is America telling young black men that you are neither safe when you are protecting yourself, nor are you safe when you are fleeing danger. And we have black organizations that are missing in this moment. And how do I know they're missing? Because just like I list those two cases and what they meant in this week, in this moment, think about the National Urban League this moment. Their social media is dropping speakers. On Monday, the day before, Carmelo got 35 years. Instead of them talking about this case and how crazy it was that it's an all-white jury, they were dropping a speaker list for their conference. And they're talking about it is the largest civil rights conference in this country. And all of the speakers they dropped, none of them were young black men. None of them were young black men. The NAACP's national social media this week talking about Christian Welker. Christian Welker works for a national news agency with hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to do their own propping up of journalists, their own boosting of personalities. Neither of these spaces talked about either of these cases. And these are supposed to be the black entities that are leaving and leading us, speaking on our behalf. This is not insignificant, y'all, nor is it small. Nor is it small. Because regardless of how you feel about the outcome of those cases, these moments, these exact moments are bigger than just those two. And I'm not trying to minimize Cyrus or Carmelo, because we should definitely be pouring our heart out and praying that something is better for young black men. But this is exactly the moment that black families, especially black families with black sons, young black sons, are worried about. My son defending himself still could wind up doing 35 years. My son trying to flee danger still can get killed and chased down like he's being hunted. This is what I'm talking about. In this moment, black sons should be protected, and we should be making sure that people understand that we are watching, we are on watch, we are on call. That is not what we're seeing from our entities in this moment. And the sad part about it is, if we're telling the truth, that this level of tone deafness is exact part of the reason we are frustrated when we hear the NAACP call for a boycott. It feels strange, dare I say off-putting, to hear them say young black boys need to sacrifice their opportunities through a boycott, while these very same organizations and these very same young black men see these same organizations not prioritizing or talking about what's going on. They're quiet. about what happened and what's happening in these two cases. These young black boys are on social media. There's no viral post from fire or upset or protest being organized by the NAACP or the National Urban League or black churches around what just happened to these young men. And don't name your church, because I go to a church that has a powerful black pastor, but I'm talking about the entity writ large. So don't name one church to me or one local NWC branch or one state's urban league. I'm talking about these national entities, these entities that are not moving collectively in a way that is pointing out the fire that is young black men and what it means to be young black men in this moment, as we see that self-defense or fleeing, none of it is adequate for people other than to listen or follow or acknowledge. Yet we're telling these young men that we should sacrifice. Not just these two cases, but none of their concerns are being lifted up, and they're being talked at in a way that is extremely wild to me. And there's also this unhealthy, when you think about how we talk at these young black men. I mean, we would be a flat out lie if we didn't reflect on this, that there's an inconsistency to see that issues that are important to young black men are not prioritized by these organizations publicly. And it's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy amount of content and an unhealthy amount of critique of these young brothers for who they aren't or are voting for. Think about that. There's so much critique of these young boys about what they're not doing when it comes to voting. But no one ever suggests that these large organizations, that if they want these young black men to believe or to believe that they're being spoken before or on behalf of, then they should damn sure engage with these young men in a way that's more sustainable, healthy. Healthier. This is not a healthy relationship for young black men, especially when the stakes are this high. How you got a boycott that you can pull out the air that fast and be prepared to boycott college football, but you don't got anything for this case, and you knew this case was coming? June 1st is when they started this trial. Only thing that we should be talking about is this all-white jury. Not partying. It should be everywhere. These young men should know that they matter. You still posting and reposting and getting your friends at national black news outlets to talk about your out of bounds protest, boycott. In this moment, your out of bounds boycott is out of bounds. These young black boys are dying, literally. Literally. And y'all are talking about protesting by giving up their sacrifice, not protesting on their behalf. Think about that. Think about that. I don't know. I don't know how to tell y'all how bothered I am by this. I'm instead of these organizations continuing down this path of believing that representation is simply saying you speak on behalf of people or about people, you got to pay attention to what young black boys are showing you, what young black men are showing you. They're showing you that their definition of representation is something completely different than what you think it is. Their definition of representation is something completely different. It is showing how disconnected you are to young black men. And they're showing you that the way you show up is insufferable and insufficient. You think it's lazy, the reason they don't show up. You think it's because they don't care. You think it's because they're sexist. You ain't considered that you ain't speaking on their behalf or a language that matters to them enough to move them. You think, oh, suffer less over here is a message that works for these brothers. My suggestion is not that the NAACP or the National Urban League or the Black Church don't have permission to speak on behalf of Black men. No, I'm not saying that. Speak on behalf of young Black men. The Constitution of the United States gives you that permission. What I'm saying is young Black men have not given you the legitimacy, and you don't have their trust to speak on their behalf. So speak as much as you want to and let it sound loud. But I'm telling you, the only people that think your voice is powerful and loud are the people inside of your outside. What I mean by that, it's your close circle. That's your outside, because your outside is not a part of these people's world. You're not listening. You're not legitimate. You've not been legitimized by these young people. These young Black men don't have trust in you, this demographic. So when you speak, you're speaking on behalf of a people that don't listen to you and don't believe what you're saying about them. It sounds funny to these brothers. And what I mean by funny, it's not like laughable funny. It's like disgusting. So the people that tell you you're doing a great job or they agree with you on your things, you're going to build yourself around this ecosystem. You got an algorithm of people around you that are only lifting up praise, and you can't hear critique. But the problem with that is not being able to hear critique will lead you down a dangerous path as a large Black institution. You will be left to a place that is an organization graveyard. You will be not relevant. You will be irrelevant to these young Black men. You are already there. It is a thin line before it snaps. And these young boys are comfortable proving that they don't hear you and you don't move them in a very visceral way. Their reaction is visceral, and it is rejection. And it doesn't show up with them being disrespectful. It doesn't show up with them not listening. It shows up with them completely tapping out. That is a failure of entity. Black organizations that were designed to do this very work are failing epically at reaching this demographic, and y'all can't see or hear that because of your ego. Because of your ego and your ecosystem, the one that you built around you that only lift up praise. You don't have a space where you pride people criticizing stupidity. And what I mean by stupidity is people doing shit on behalf of young Black men without including them, but for the ones that get along with what you say. So here's what I'm gonna ask y'all. Again, I would ask all of us to consider this. An organization, listen to me, an organization can have a long history of legacy while at the same time have a problem with legitimacy. And that legitimacy in this case is with the young Black men of our community. I don't believe those two thoughts are contradictory to each other. I think that that's grounded in what we're living through right now. And that legitimacy, that irrelevance that I was talking about, I gave it a name. It's called the blockbuster syndrome. Blockbuster syndrome. And people that are old enough to know what blockbuster is can almost automatically assume what the blockbuster syndrome is. And I believe wholeheartedly that some of our organizations, some of our institutions in the Black community are suffering from the rigor mortis of status quo and couching it in traditions. And that, to me, is the definition of blockbuster syndrome. Let me explain. Think of the hard truths that Blockbuster showed us. If you were me, if you were my age in the South, you know how popular Blockbuster was. They were everywhere. They were how you saw the world. And this company had a model that failed, and it failed because they had disconnected themselves from change and were committed to the model that they created. even though the people that they were trying to serve, their very customers, were moving on and changing in their habits. Those companies' models were built around that one thing, and it stayed that way. Those assumptions never changed. They were true for years. They were true for years. But when the clientele attitudes and behavior changed, the company struggled to meet the moment. You hear me, y'all? The company struggled to meet the moment. And that left the door open for new competitors to meet that moment. Then we got Netflix and other streaming services because Blockbuster didn't. Now, if you consider that, there must be a similar, if not exact, critique of some of our organizations. These organizations in our community, a significant number of Black men don't have political or social justice homes at these organizations. And it does not matter that you think you speak on their behalf. Their representation in your membership, or I should say the lack of their representation in your membership, should see that they ain't effing with you. They ain't effing with you. That low membership is the rejection of where you are right now in this moment. It is your customers telling you that they're moved on from what you think is normal. This is to say that the Black man, the young Black man of 2026, does not feel what the young Black man of the 30s, the 40s, 50s, and 60s felt for the National Urban League, the NAACP, or the Black church. Those are facts. Facts proven by membership. And if we are honest about those facts, then we are left to say, or left to answer, is it because of their priorities, perspectives, and concerns? Do they feel that they're not reflected in the day-to-day actions of these organizations, these Black institutions? And then once we admit that, then we also have to say, yes, that is exactly what these young men are telling us. They don't see themselves in this organization. We hear it so often in this work that I'm committed to. We see it and hear it all the time. And if that's the reason, then we gotta wrestle with a hard truth about this, what's destined to happen to these organizations. It's inevitable. And that inevitability isn't that we wake up one morning and the NAACP is gone. That's not going to happen. That's not realistic. We're not going to wake up and the NAACP is gone. What does happen, though, is it will wither away, spending its last days offering advice and ideas that no one will listen to, no one that's outside of their inside circle. You know, Black folk who go to Martha's Vineyard with kente cloth bathing suits, drinking mimosas out of recyclable straws. Now, I'm not suggesting, guys, that the NAACP, the National Urban League, or even the Black church have abandoned their principles. But I am suggesting that these organizations don't have effective mechanisms for recognizing the shifts and concerns of young Black men and then adapting to those priorities accordingly. That is what I'm suggesting. So I no longer need to ask what happens if we continue to put personalities over effective mission accomplishment, because the answer lives in the example that is Blockbuster. Blockbuster is the answer to what happens when we refuse to accept the inevitable. When we can't change, patterns will change for the constituency we're trying to reach. I suggest we don't wait until the NAACP no longer is effective for any of us. There are many ways forward. I think there needs to be a multi-pronged experience where we are trying to figure this out. Part of it needs to be so let me put this post. Let me pause real quick because I don't like being disconnected from y'all. Yeah, Boku said we had more Hollywood videos here. I get it. You know what I'm saying? Listen, so wherever you are, you can take the Blockbuster model and you can sub Blockbuster and put Hollywood videos or whoever or wherever. That's a regional thing. I'm a country boy who was raised in North Carolina, and we didn't have Hollywood videos. We had Blockbusters everywhere. So I think Blockbuster just provided a national example that I was using. So, but yes, Hollywood videos also fit the model as well. So I think we should, think about getting back to like, what do we do? Because I always talk about these problems, and then people say, well, that's the problem. What are we going to do about it? Well, that's a great question. What are we going to do about it? I think the first thing we need to do is first we need to acknowledge that we have a problem with effectiveness, that the absence of mechanisms to reach young Black men that exist in our current so-called leader structure, and then acknowledge that. So I would offer, for those who feel so moved to try to change the NAACP, the first thing you need to do is to recognize that the NAACP, the National Urban League, these are, and the church too, these are membership organizations. So if you want to change them, you have to be a member. So for those of you who feel that the way forward is to change these entities from inside, then you need to join local branches and then move up leadership and challenge the current leadership so that you can push the organization forward, if that's your pathway forward. I also have to tell you, you must be prepared to meet an older age group of gatekeepers who are going to hit you in the face every chance they get, not physically, but proverbially, with the old status quo answers. So you have to be prepared to fight that. That is part of trying to change an ancient, or I should say older, organization and bring it into where a space that it doesn't want to exist. The NAACP has shown us that even though it was designed to be nimble and also less central, it has become an organization, an entity that moves lock and step with the national org is doing. And I don't know if that's healthy, but I'm telling you, that's what you need to do. I'm telling you, that's what you need to do. But for those of us who are, seeing that the NAACP doesn't speak for young Black men, 45 years and younger specifically, especially those without college degrees, who find ourselves every day trying not to be a statistic. These organizations are inadequate in addressing what we need at this moment. We see that. And so there has to be a pathway forward. And let me make this extremely personal today. I don't know if y'all remember last year in November, there was a police who issued a citation for me having parties and having alcohol at a party. I wasn't selling alcohol. I wasn't giving alcohol to anyone that was under 21. They just said you can't have alcohol because North Carolina 18B 301F Section 4. Any other person would have just took that challenge. Mind you, this is a couple days before the election, and it started looking extremely political to me that, every time I did something, there was pushback in the community. However, today I went to court for that. And what you will not hear from anywhere is how I got that charge dismissed, because I knew that statute didn't apply because 18B 301 Section C2 gave me authorization to have that alcohol and be able to party with my people. But what I'm saying is, because I have the time and ability to read code, state code I'm talking about, it prevented me in this moment from becoming a statistic. We are every day, regardless of our positions as Black men, fighting not to be statistics. And for those of us who already are fighting systems and don't feel comfortable trying to fight an organization that is old as the NAACP, then we also need to think about our way forward. And our way forward has to be a different pathway, an adequate pathway, right? This moment is different. It's a different light. And we have to believe that these organizations are not what we are trying to do and what we need in this moment. Then we must collectively agree that we're going to build something new. And that's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but it's damn sure going to be cleaner than trying to fight the systems of legacy and people who are offended by every change as an attack on themselves or calling it disrespectful. Or maybe we don't build a new organization. Maybe we just build mechanisms to fight for issues that are pertinent, that are evergreen issues in Black communities. Maybe we build systems that address how we are undereducating Black boys systemically, how we are overcharging and policing Black boys as we've seen today, vigilante policing with the shooting of a Black man in his back. Then a judicial system excluding all Black jurors or potential Black jurors so they can get an all-white jury, so they can give this young man 35 years for protecting himself. And I don't care that you all want to say that he told that young white boy, if you touch me, you're going to find out. That is the equivalent to someone saying, do not keep touching me or do not keep pressing up on me because I'm going to react. That does not eliminate the fact that it was self-defense. He should not have been touched. But for him being touched, he wasn't doing anything. So don't talk to me about him having his hand in his bag. Talk to me about someone putting their hands on him when they shouldn't have. It was a public game. And now this kid is facing 35 years. In 3 hours, they decided that. That means they already had that decision that was going to be the case regardless. And that's why they fought to get that all-white jury. And when I say all-white, don't talk to me about the people that were up there that were not white. Because we know some people show up because of their proximity to whiteness just as whiteness. And when I talk about whiteness, people that know me know I'm not talking about a color. I'm talking about a mentality. I'm talking about a mentality. So maybe, y'all, just maybe, we build entities that don't support the growing of organizations, but the growing of mechanisms to address our problems. How do we build the world's first entity that is not an entity in that it has buildings and structures, but it has all of the systems, the people, its constituents need to address the problem, that train leaders for anybody that wants to speak up that feels unseen? How do we build organizations or that is not an organization that just has all of the fillers to make Black men seen, to address the problems that's plaguing us? How do we become the first voice that entities want to speak to about issues that are plaguing Black men first? How do we convince the world that what the NAACP, the National Urban League, and the Black church in some cases are not speaking for what young Black men feel? Rappers don't speak. Wealthy ass basketball players and football players and baseball players and comedians and actors don't speak on behalf of the lived experience of Black men who are trying not to be a statistic. How do we create an environment that is so uncomfortable for this type of behavior, where you go to these entities who are housed in massive buildings and people are comfortable speaking on behalf of people they have no relationship with simply because they share a skin color? How do we make it uncomfortable for Don Lemon to be the spokesman of problematic protests, so-called problematic protests? How does it become so uncomfortable that Don Lemon will never make himself a victim like he did when he knows firsthand how Black men suffer and don't have the resources that he has, that didn't get golden parachutes when they left major entities? How do we make it uncomfortable for LeBron James to start an organization that he calls a social justice organization only to make money off of it through his production firm with another Black athlete, Draymond Green, producing online content from funds that they raise from other organizations that people are trying to do work. But people rather go to LeBron James because of his name, not because he knows anything about Black organizing. How do we make it uncomfortable for Jay-Z to be the speaker of Black man problems when he's a billionaire? I have no problem with Jay-Z's success, except for when it conflicts with his morality. And that is the same for all of these people. So I say, if the person closest to the problem probably has the best solution, then it has to apply for Black men too. We can no longer be left out in the dark and exposed in the way that our so-called Black institutions have and are. So for Black men, we have to take up a position that no organization is too big to fail when it comes to our lives and speaking on our issues. We need to declare that we collectively are our spokespeople and not these famous people that make white people comfortable. And when we do that, some of the pessimism that exists in us about our politics will disappear. Some of the problems of our people not showing up will disappear. The lagging in education, if we create a system that catches our brothers from falling through, will disappear. Because I don't know how all of these entities can exist with so much money and so many resources and not have already thought through a plan beyond telling young Black boys to sacrifice. Where when we first noticed this gap in education between Black kids, Black boys, little Black boys, and little Black girls, did we stop? Why didn't we start immediately trying to address that? Why, when we knew they was creating a school to prison pipeline, why didn't we interrupt that pipeline immediately when it was first articulated? We don't have plans in our entities, and we need to own that. We need to own that. We need to own that. I need us to understand that. There's no existing entity at the scale of the NAACP that speaks on behalf of young Black men in a way that does not offend young Black men. Let me say it plainer. The work, or the so-called work being done on behalf of Black men, is so transactional, even from Black legacy organizations, that even young Black men are turned off. And the only people that like it are the white donors that are supporting these organizations. We should all be saddened by that fact, that truth. We should all be unwavering in our fight against that, not because we want to end or need to shrink the NAACP's influence or the National Urban League's influence or the Black church influence, but because we want it stronger. Because young Black men need these organizations to be stronger. Because the world will eliminate young Black men. We saw it in two different ways in the judicial system. Chow is free. Carmelo is about to serve 35 years. He's on day 2 of 35 years. He's on day 2 of 35 years. And these entities are talking about Christian Welker and their upcoming civil rights. What kind of civil rights conference can you have in the light of what just happened to Carmelo Anthony? Does he not deserve civil rights in a just verdict? And then you post the flyer. You list your speakers and you don't name a single young Black man, as if the house that is young Black men in America is not burning down. And we will be blamed in November if there's a dip in our participation. We will be called selfish, sexist. We will be called the white people of Black people. And nobody will have criticism for the system that eliminates us and kills us 1,000 different ways daily. Where? Where is the justice in any of that? How are you calling yourself the speaker, well, the largest civil rights organization in the nation, when you sit silent on days of death like Black men are living through? I don't feel very celebratory. The moment is too heavy to pretend that what we are doing is working. If you are afraid to say that, whatever capacity, any type of leadership at any organization that calls itself a social justice organization, you should step down and start over. You should go work at Target. You should try to get a job for Goya Beans or one of those organizations that support right-wing causes, because that's what you're doing. When you sit silent at these organizations and let them invisible Black men like this, even when there are organizations, you are having a hand in the play that white supremacy insists on. We shouldn't joke about that. That is very serious. That is very now. That is accurate. I am not saying the NAACP, the National Urban League, or the Black Church abandoned its principles. I am saying they are ineffective at reaching and speaking on behalf of young Black men. And I expand that critique to Black rich men, Black entertainers, athletes, and so many others. And also the Black men who play politics in this nation, with very few exceptions. So much so that I can say it on a few fingers at the national level. And don't tell me somebody's offended or anything, because all of y'all were sharing that NAACP boycott, but ain't none of y'all got no critique for NAACP putting up Christian Welker for doing an interview with Donald Trump, what she gets paid to do, as she's going to go to work and work for that majority white news organization, white-owned news organization that ignores all of the problems of young Black men. We applaud her for talking about the Iranian war, but we don't applaud her for not, what is the criticism for her not bringing up what's going on with young Black boys in that interview when she was sitting across from Donald Trump? If we don't make our issues known or heard, why will they? Why would they? And don't tell me we could do two things. We can walk and chew gum, because this ain't a game. And walking and chewing gum for Black men don't matter. Both of them will get you killed in this country, because either way, they still see you as carrying a weapon. This is the moment. This is the moment where we say enough is enough. We can no longer pretend that what we have is adequate. It is not adequate. And anybody bothered by that, it's your personality that I offended. Or you are ahistorical. And those people who are disconnected from our history, you can trick those people every day. You can trick those people every day. I don't know what to tell y'all. I'm over here feeling like an old man screaming at the dog or the cat on the porch. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. I like Kevin Hart. Think he's funny. But when my pastor said Kevin Hart ain't did nothing for the Black community, so he don't get to make jokes, well, he think it's funny to have a joke made about what happened to George Floyd, that struck me in a real way. That made me think in a real way. How is it okay? We saw the Tom Brady roast. That was awkward at best, anti-black on the other end of the spectrum. But why is Kevin Hart allowed to walk around and do interviews with people like Charlemagne the God? Shit, why the hell does Charlemagne the God even exist as a personality that speaks on behalf of our community? I'll tell you why. Because white people thought that was the key to reaching us. White people think Charlemagne the God is a speaker on behalf of black issues. Charlemagne the God is a shock jock. No shock jock speaks for any other race. Howard Stern is not the voice of white people. I'm not saying Charlemagne shouldn't have a place or a check, but he's a shock jock. He's Wendy Williams' assistant with a platform. But white people like that. And so what happens is he gets all of the asks and invitations from the party. And people go sit on his couch or whatever you call it, his proverbial couch, and have conversations when it means nothing on behalf or to men that look like me. We are not his clientele. We need to rearrange our values and don't be fooled that what they tell you is popular has to be popular for you. Just because they call him your leader, if you didn't name him your leader, push back on it. And you cannot. The days of sitting idle, and quiet in the face of what's happening to young black men have to end. Because we know they're going to keep coming. These days are going to keep getting numbered. Keep getting numbered. I'm bothered that what's considered politics now is jokes and childish. I am bothered by that. People will engage with your content simply to troll. We have created an environment where people are rewarded for nothing. 250 years of what, right? Not 250 years of democracy, right? 250 years of white supremacy and the excluding of black men. We are at this moment here because of every moment that happened before this one. And the long suffering and high tolerance for black man's pain in this country is on display when we have entities that say they represent us are silent about what is happening to these and what just happened to these two young black men. 250 years of nothingness is what black men have gotten from this country. Hope is for me. Hope is not in the only hope I have. The hope I have exists in young black people and people who care about people. And I keep talking about young black men because we know that what we do for young black men, the entire world benefits from it. And I'm talking about the entire United States benefit from what we do from them. There's no hope in institutions. If you had hope, Amanda, if you had hope in any institution, put it in these people, put it in these young people, put it in yourself and what's possible when you activate. The only hope we should have is in fighting the fuck back. The only hope that matters is how we fight back, even at and with the people who claim to be our allies, entities that used to be the spear or the tip of the spear may now be dulled and a tool we no longer need. No one is fighting with aluminum swords anymore. We need to be prepared for social justice war. And I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about fighting politically How do we have candidates that will never be bought? Their morality costs more than any lobbyist will be willing to spend. We've tried the way that they suggest, getting these people who spend their entire life next to proximity to power or whiteness and saying that this is our leadership. Some perverted form of the talented 10th is what we've been trying. Let's reject that notion. The answers to our problems may live within us. Amanda, the hope is it is not in our institutions. It is in the people who care. It is in the people who care. As someone who was beaten and thrown in jail by the Philadelphia Police Department, having done nothing wrong, I don't look to Charlemagne or any of his ilk to speak for me. They were at best little boys when I went through it. They have no frame of reference. I appreciate that, Jonathan. And I want to go back to something you said in your statement. It's not even that the little boys part apply to their age. For me, it's that they're little boys in their thinking. The bag is the only thing that matters. They'll get the bag and leave their soul on the table. They'll do it for clicks. And that's problematic. That's problematic. Beyond the ask to go make money and be rich and be successful. There should be an ask first of, is your soul for sale? Is your soul for sale? Is your soul for sale? I'm Mondale Robinson. Y'all have a great evening, but don't sell your soul doing it. Peace.